All right, so first of all, let's explore what a citation manager is, because this is a new piece of software for a lot of folks in the virtual room today. So this is a screenshot of my Zotero library. Not to worry, if you've just downloaded the tool, it probably will not look like this. I use it a lot, so it is very, very full. But what a citation manager is, first of all, it's a tool that collects metadata. So it collects the information about your information from your resources. This includes things like author names, titles, journal numbers, issue numbers, the DOI or the URL for a resource. And it uses all of this material to help you generate citations ultimately. It may also collect PDF copies of articles, so you can keep everything in one place. So it captures all the information about an article or another resource, and it may keep a copy of that resource in one spot in this Zotero library. What else does it do? It allows you to organize your resources into different folders for different projects. And these folders can also be shared with team members. There is something called a group library that you can create. So if you have a group project, you are then able to work within the same resource. And I can see in the chat briefly that a colleague has to use Teams on the web to access this presentation. That could be the issue. In theory, this should be functioning. I don't know if Teams might be a little bit of a heavy load for folks to join online, depending on their connection. At the very least, this recording will be made available, and I am happy to send the slide deck your way, and please feel free to share that with your colleague as well. So Zotero allows us to capture this information, to organize this information. It also allows us to automatically generate in-text citations and works cited lists. And this can be done just from the library itself, dragging and dropping, as we'll explore, but it can also be done with a direct Microsoft Word or a Google Docs plugin. So they make it really, really seamless to automatically generate your citations. Additionally, it's a really useful tool for large projects because it keeps everything in one place. Like I mentioned, it can download PDFs and actual copies of articles and other resources that you're working with and keep them all in one place. You are then able to read it in a tab in your Zotero library, highlight it, annotate it, whatever you want to do with it, and keep it in the same place as all the rest of your research. So if perhaps, like me, when I was in my undergrad and I would find a PDF of an article, I would quickly save it to my desktop, forget to rename it, and just have a mess of files on my computer. This is a much more organized way to keep track of all of your sources. So let's talk about getting started. When you have Zotero downloaded on your device, there are two things that you need to do in order to add material to your library. Step one is you have to actually open the Zotero library. It must be open in the background of your computer, so you can just minimize it in the background as you go to save sources, but it must be open on your computer. Step two is saving material from a browser. And now I have a bunch of screenshots here that I will show you momentarily, but I will demonstrate this live, how to save material into your Zotero library. So I've run a quick search in the Libraries One search here for libraries and student success. I'm looking for peer-reviewed journal articles in particular, and I have a long list of results popping up here. Let's say I want to save this entire list of resources that have popped up on my screen to my Zotero library. They all look useful to me. I will go and hit this little button up at the top here. This is the browser extension. So again, if you are downloading Zotero to your library, you have to download the actual library itself, the software, to your computer alongside the Zotero connector. This lives in your web browser. And this is what communicates to the Zotero library. So any browser that you like to work in, I'm working in Google Chrome today, you have to have this Zotero connector installed. That connector will appear either as a little icon at the top right of your browser bar, or it will live under this puzzle piece, which is the icon that stands for any extensions you've added to your browser. If you click on this icon, right now it looks like a yellow file folder. It says Zotero Item Selector, And now it says I can select which items I would like to add to my library. I can check off as many items as I like from this list, click OK, and it says it's saving it to my library. That's all you have to do. You don't have to click OK. You don't have to do anything else. Once you click that connector, you then are able to save material to your library. And now I can see if I open up my library, I have these 3 items right here that I just added from my web search, from my one search. And you can see the date added here. It tells me it was today, which is February 4th, 2026. Now, the interesting thing with Zotero is that I like to say it's a master of disguise. So if I find a particular article that I'm interested in here, and I click all the way through, the best practice is to click all the way through to the resource, unless you're using the list function to select a bunch of items from an entire landing page of results on the library search. I would recommend going through to the actual resource itself. Now I'm on the landing page for an article, and I can see this icon up in the top corner here has changed its appearance. It's a master of disguise. Instead of a file folder, which indicates multiple resources that I can then select from, it now looks like a sheet of paper, which is an individual article. You'll notice if you're looking at an ebook, it will look like a blue book. If you're looking at a news website, it will look like a rolled up newspaper. It changes what it looks like based on what it thinks the resource is that it's looking at. So if I go ahead and click this icon, it says save to Zotero. It says saving to my library, and you'll see it now has a snapshot and a PDF attached. Those are automatic settings that you can add to your library, and I will show you that in a few moments. But all you have to do is click that button, and now we'll see if I pull up my library, I have this article here, strategic alliances, and all of its associated metadata. Now, to jump back to my screenshots here, I do have some memory aids included in this presentation to show you what it looks like if you're clicking on that file folder. You can then select a number of resources from that page, any that look useful to you. If you're looking at a book, here's an example of what that blue book icon looks like. For an article, we have that little article image. And one thing that I should demonstrate as well, let me do it while I'm on this page here. If you have multiple folders selected, or created rather, in your library, instead of just allowing it to save to my library, you can then select a specific folder if there's one where you would like it to go and live. But no matter where you save something, you can drag and drop it into any folder that you like. And you can expand to see any additional folders that you may have created. But we'll talk about folders more robustly in just a few moments. I wanted to show you that this also works for YouTube videos. When you do, the icon changes to look like a little webcam. And if you're using it for items on the web, like news, it will look like a rolled up newspaper. If it is just a web page, maybe it's a blog or like a company website, it will look like a little blue web page icon. All right, so now is your opportunity. I would like us to take a couple of minutes to add some material to your Zotero library. So if you have Zotero downloaded to your device, I'm going to set a timer for a couple of minutes, and I'll allow you to go and explore. So just add material. It doesn't quite matter what it is, but I've started the timer for 2 minutes. Please feel free to add material to your library so that now you'll have some stuff that you can play with as we learn the different functions around Zotero. And if you have any questions at this time, please feel free, pop them in the chat, pop them into Mentimeter. I'm happy to address them. All right, I can see one question right now. Can you put the link into the chat for the Zotero connector? Yes, absolutely. So I will send you, let me send along. This is the link to Zotero.org. If you click on the download button on that page, it will take you to the page where you can download both the software and the connector. So you can download the connector from that point. And if you are downloading the connector, make sure that you do have that page open in the browser you intend to use for your research. So if it opens in, say, Microsoft Edge, but you prefer to do your work in Firefox or in Chrome, make sure you're actually opening it up within Chrome or Firefox. All right, so our 2 minutes have passed. Hopefully we've all had a chance to add some material to our Zotero libraries. Now we're going to explore what we actually do with that material once we open up our Zotero library, and we can talk about how we edit and organize material that's in there. And if you still need a couple moments, please feel free to add material to your library as I go through this little explanation. So I want to show you the different parts of the Zotero library, and then I'll demonstrate kind of how it all works. So you'll see there are 3 main panels in your Zotero library. Again, this is a screenshot of mine. It is extremely full. I don't expect yours will necessarily look quite like this. It can be a little overwhelming when you see mine, but not to worry, it will all make sense. We'll start on the right-hand side. When you are clicked on an individual article, you will see all of its metadata appear on the right-hand side here. This includes all of the item information. We know what kind of resource it is. We know its title. We have the author, the publication, etc., etc. So this is all of the most minute details are captured in the right-hand panel. In the middle panel, we have all of the articles and resources that we've saved into our Zotero library. So if you're clicked on My Library, you will see absolutely everything. If you are clicked on a separate folder, you will see just what is within that folder. On the left-hand side, we have the highest level of organization and the highest level of information. This is where we create all of our different folders and where we can access our group libraries. So let me pull this up live to show you how this all functions. So let's say this is an article that I am interested in working with. Let's say I've just saved it to my library. What I want to do first, as soon as you've added material to your library, you want to double check the information that has been saved in Zotero. Double check it to make sure it's accurate. Sometimes this tool, it's not totally perfect. No tool is 100% perfect. I would say Zotero does a really good job, but it's not always going to get things perfectly right. So maybe if I'm looking at this article, maybe I know that Katie Greer is actually Katie Green. I can click on any piece of information here and edit that information. So if you notice that the volume or the issue is wrong or it's missing, you're able to type that in yourself. And here, this doesn't actually look like a page range. If I knew that this was a particular page range, I could say this was pages 4 to 17 of the journal. So you can go in and make sure that this is accurate. And the reason you want to make sure this is accurate is that this is where Zotero draws all of its information for generating citations. So that's step 1. You save an item to your library. You want to double check that the information is correct. And you can scroll through this to see everything that's there. If it decides that what it's looking at is actually something other than what it is, so let's say this is actually a book chapter, I could go ahead and change the item type by clicking on it. I could select book section, or I could select forum post. And again, this will influence what the citation output actually looks like. So you want to make sure it's accurate, but I want to highlight that you can click on that and change it as well. And any of these fields are things that you can edit. Now you'll notice I was able to scroll down as I explored here. And as we get to these other sections, you'll notice this says abstract, and it has a little blue symbol next to it that matches the blue symbol over here. These are shortcuts to jump through everything that we're going to scroll through here. So once you've made it through all the information, you've proofread it, you've made sure it's accurate, you can explore some of the other material that's captured by Zotero. If it can, it will automatically capture the abstract of a resource. This is something, again, that you can edit. Don't know if you necessarily need to, but it's there for you. It will also capture, like I said, a PDF or sometimes a screenshot of what a web page looks like. That can be a useful record for you if you know that a web page might be subject to change going forwards. You've got at least a static record of what it looked like at the time that you accessed it. But we have the PDF available here. This is a little thumbnail. If we were to double click it, it will open up within our Zotero library. And this is where we could then highlight and annotate as we wish. And we'll talk about that more in a moment. If I click back on my library, I get back to where I was. I can scroll down. This is where I can create notes. So it's the little orange icon. I can also click that orange icon to jump down to notes, and I could type in a note here. So I usually like to leave notes that remind me why I added something to my Zotero library, but you can also use it if you're taking notes on your document. You can add them in here. And you'll see in the middle, the center pane here, it's automatically appended notes to this particular item. I can open it in this side window, or if I double click, I can actually open up the notes panel within this larger pane in my library as well. That is a new feature that Zotero just released last week, actually. If you click on the article title within the library, it takes you back to this main panel with all of the information. You can see my note still lives there. It tells me what libraries and collections it lives in. So if it's in multiple folders, it will tell you which folders it's in. And you can also add tags from here, which may be useful to you in terms of organizing your information. It really depends on your own preferences here. You can drag and drop items into different folders to stay organized, but maybe thematically, using a tag, this is a really generic one, it might not be the best example, but if I have items in my library that are related to different themes, I could maybe label it with a theme of librarianship so that at a glance, I would then be able to explore my tags or search for tags up at the top of my screen to find all of the material that engages with that theme. So if it's useful to you, you can use the tags function as well. And I'll go ahead and remove that tag for now. You can also link items to other items in your library. Again, this is contextual. It depends on what exactly you're trying to do with your resources. But one example, if say this article was a book review, I could then link it to the record of the actual book that it was reviewing. So I could jump back and forth between the two as needed. It just makes it a little bit easier. But when you hit that button, it pulls up a mini version of your library, and you could then go through and select the related material, and that related material then will appear right here. And it'll act as a shortcut to take you back to that item that was linked. So this is the right-hand side of the library panel. All of these are the shortcuts that help you to navigate all of this. We'll move now to this center panel. So this is where we see all of the individual items we've added to our library. And you'll notice there are different headings for different columns available here. Right now, I have title, creator, date, date added, and I have a little icon that shows me any attachments that are there for an item, as well as notes. If you've just downloaded Zotero, you may not have all of these columns automatically there. If you right-click any of the columns, you will see that you can select additional columns that might be of use to you. Personally, I really like the date added one, and that's how I like to organize my material. If I click on it, it will organize things in the order of most recent to least recent. That to me helps me stay organized because, as you can see, I use Zotero a lot, and I want to see the things that I've added most recently up at the top of my list. But it's up to you how you prefer to stay organized. You might want to stay organized by author name. If I click on creator, it'll shift things to be alphabetical by author. I can do that by title as well, or I could do it by date of publication. My personal preference is the date added. Now, above this section in the center panel here, you'll see a few additional icons. we have this icon here where if you hover over it, it says new item. This allows you to add something manually to your library. So let's say you have a physical book sitting on your desk. You want to add it to your Zotero library. You can click on book and it gives you a blank record that you can then fill out the details for. There is also this magic wand that allows you to add an item by an identifier. So if you know the ISBN of a book, you have a DOI, you have some other kind of link, you can paste it in here and it will retrieve all the information for that resource for you. You can also add files to your library here. So maybe you have a PDF that's been saved on your computer. You can add the file to your library in this fashion. And you can also create notes here as well. This allows you two options. You can create a standalone note, which is not attached to any item in your library. So this could be a reminder for yourself, must find this resource, or some other thing that you've encountered. It can be a little reminder for you, or you can create what's called a item note. So if you're clicked on a particular record, you can create a note and it will be the same kind of note that we created before. So it will show up attached to your particular item. And if you were to jump to the notes button, you'll see it appear on that right-hand side as well. So I've been taking for granted, but in this center panel as well, you'll see the items that have notes or attachments have a little arrow beside them. If you click on that arrow, you will get to see any attachments. In this case, it's a snapshot of a web page. But in some other cases, you may also see full text PDF. And you'll see that little thumbnail available to you. Again, if you double click it, it will open up a panel in your browser or within your Zotero library. So from this center panel, you'll see up at the top, we also have all of these different items that I have opened. When you are looking at a resource, you can highlight. You can choose your color. You can also add a comment. And you can toggle your notes on and off so that they show up in the left-hand column. So it might make it easier for you to navigate through documents if you're reading and highlighting, and then you can just jump to the sections where you found something really interesting. So I'll do this again, and now you can see I have one highlight and two highlights, and it helps me jump through the document here. Zotero has also adjusted just within the past week to make itself a little more comfortable for its users. So you can adjust the theme of your reading, whatever feels most comfortable for you, and you can really, really customize it as you go. You can also look at more than one page at once. It really depends what you prefer. But it's a really handy place to annotate all of your documents and kind of work in the same space where you've saved everything. Now, that's the center panel. On the left-hand side, we have my library and any folders that you wish to create. Underneath, you'll see all of these little buttons down here. These are tags. So we talked a moment ago about creating tags for a record in the right-hand panel. This is where you can filter your tags, or you can scroll through, and if you click on one, you'll see it filters to the item that had that particular tag on it. So often, thematically, it can be a useful way for navigating through your resources. In your library, you can click on this folder button up at the top to create a new folder. They call it a collection. I'm going to call this example and create the collection. Now you can see I have my example folder in my library. To populate it, all I have to do is drag and drop material. You'll notice it doesn't disappear from your main library, but now it also lives within the folder. And you can do that for as many items as you wish. And now you can see I dragged and dropped 3 items. I actually dragged the same one twice. We'll talk about how to fix that. But you can see it all appear within that folder. If you explore, you'll notice in my own library, I have subfolders for my folders. If you right click on one, you can create new sub collection. So I'll call this sub example. And now I have subfolders and I can move material into subfolders. So if you have a large project and you're working on different pieces of it, maybe you want to organize it in multiple folders or within one folder with subfolders to it. It's really up to you how you prefer to stay organized. If we continue down, my publications is not something that I personally use, but you can add material that you've created to your own Zotero profile. So if you have created a free Zotero account, you may be able to add your material there if that is of interest. Duplicate items appearing underneath. This is Zotero trying to capture which items look like they've been added to your library more than once. You do have to review the information that appears on the right-hand side here. So you can see I've clicked on this first item and it's automatically highlighted its partner resource. If I click on this one down here, it automatically highlights the one that it thinks is the same. I then can, on the right-hand side, explore the metadata for each of those items. And there is no difference between these, just the time of access. So I can click merge two items and it disappears from my duplicate items list. Now in my library, I will only have one copy of that record. You can also jump to any unfiled items. These are items that live in your library that do not also live in a folder. And you can retrieve your trash. If you accidentally delete something, you don't need to worry. It will live in your trash and you can then move it back to anywhere you want it to go. If you wanted to delete an item, you can right click and move item to trash. You should also be able to click and hit delete, which is what I just did. When you do that, it'll ask you if you're sure. You can click OK, and now that item is removed. But you'll see it does live, in theory, it should live in my trash. You'll also see group libraries listed underneath. So this is something that you need to have a free Zotero account in order to do. But in a group library, you are able to share resources with anyone else who has the link to that particular library. So you can have multiple Zotero users adding material to a library and accessing the resources within it. So in this library here, this is with a bunch of my library colleagues from around Memorial University. We have some reading that we've organized around generative AI, and we're able to all access this material. So I'm just going to pause for a moment because I can see a question in the chat, a couple of questions. How would you copy a group library folder to my library? So that's a good question. When you join a group library, it will automatically appear within your Zotero account as long as you have signed into your Zotero account, and I'll show you where to do that in a moment. And from there, you can't actually drag and drop into your own library, but what you can do is highlight any items that you like and drag and drop them into your library. So that's one way you could copy material over, but it will automatically appear as a group library that you've joined. For another question, for the duplicate items, if I want to keep an item in two different subfolders, does it still recognize it? No. If you have items that are in different subfolders and they kind of appear multiply within those different subfolders, that's not the same as having a duplicate item within your library as a whole, because it's still using the same record, just putting it in different places. So no, that'll be fine. And another question here, if you share a library, can you see each other's annotations and notes? So I think the answer here is it depends. I don't believe that annotations are visible, but I do believe if someone were to add a note, as we've done here, we added discussion questions. Those should be visible to everyone because it is appended to that item in the library. I am not certain that any annotations you make to a document will be visible to everyone. But this is something where if you wanted to look this up in the Zotero forums, you should be able to find an answer there. So Zotero is completely open source, it's totally free, and their forums are excellent for answering questions. And as for accessing the group libraries and being able to share libraries with other people, it is not a paid account. It is totally free. So it's the same free account that allows you to save your Zotero library to the cloud, which allows you to access it through the web from anywhere, and it backs up all of your resources. That's all you need to do. So with all of that said, let me jump back to our presentation here, because I do have all of this summarized on this slide here. The only thing I haven't mentioned yet so far is this top menu, which is where you see file, edit, etc. And this is where you can adjust your settings and sync with a Zotero account. So this is this top menu up here. If we go to edit and settings, this is one of the most important things as you're getting started. Under sync is where you can put in your username and link your account. This is what will back up everything in your library, and creating that free account, which you do from Zotero.org, is also where you can then create group libraries. Under your settings as well, under export and cite, you are then able to choose a citation style. So this will come in handy for the next part of the workshop. So this is where you can adjust if you want to cite in APA style, if you want to cite in Chicago style, MLA style, they're all available to you. And you can also adjust under cite. I would recommend adjusting both to match so that as we explore different citations, different methods for creating citations, they will be uniform in whatever format you choose. So again, that is under edit and settings. And for those who are interested in registering, I will paste the link into the chat as well, just to make sure that we are all on the same page if you are interested in creating that account. It also allows you to create groups, and I'm going to paste the link that explains a little bit more about groups in the chat as well. Again, the documentation for Zotero is excellent, so I do recommend exploring their forums. All right, so I want everyone to take a couple of minutes now just to play around with your library, see if you can customize it. And again, I'll put that timer up on the screen. And as that goes, I will handle any additional questions that may roll in. So I can see one in the chat now. I'd like to store my PDFs in my MUN Google Drive instead of within Zotero. Have you used the linked files feature to store files? That is not a feature that I have personally used. I, again, would recommend going to the Zotero forums to explore linked files, but I don't foresee any issues with that. I think that would be a good way of going about it. And can you remind us how to create a shared library? Yes, so let me discuss that. I will have to show you from my browser for my own account. So if you're creating a group library, this is something that you do from Zotero.org. So you can see I'm logged in here with my name, and I can see web library, groups, etc. The web library basically takes me to a web version of my Zotero page, my Zotero library. So this is why having a free account can be useful, because all of my library has been backed up to the Zotero cloud. I can now access it through my web browser. I can also click on groups. For groups, I can now see all of the Zotero groups that I have created or have been added to. This is also the page where you can then create a new group. If I click on new group, I can choose a name for my group, and I can choose the kind of membership. From there, you would create the group, and you could invite anyone using either the Zotero username or their email address to access that group. But that is something that you have to do from Zotero.org. So thank you. That is an excellent question. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions at this time, and our time is up for our hands-on moment here. So hopefully you've had a chance to play around with your library a little bit, maybe create a folder, or maybe practice dragging something into a folder. Now we're going to talk about how it all comes together, how we can incorporate this in a bibliography. So there are 3 ways to generate citations here. You can, again, first adjust your preferences. So under Edit and Settings, you can adjust your export and citation formats as I demonstrated, and I'll show you this again in a moment. You can then either drag and drop an item from the center panel of your library into a Word document to create a full citation. If you hold down the Shift key, you will be able to drag and drop an in-text citation. So let me demonstrate what this looks like first before we continue on with these other processes. So I've opened up a Word document. This could also be a Google Doc, totally fine, works with both. I will then first go to Edit and Settings and adjust my export and cite format. So I'm going to leave it as APA 7 and make sure that I also have APA 7 selected for cite. And all you have to do is click on it. You don't have to hit OK. You don't have to do anything else. You just have to click on the one that you want to be using. So now let's go back to my library. I'll shrink this down so it makes it a little easier to drag and drop. I can just take an item that I like. Again, I've proofread that material, made sure it's accurate, drag and drop, and now it's been formatted for me in APA style. It's kind of magical. Again, you want to make sure you're proofreading it. This doesn't look like an appropriate page range. That's something I would probably want to adjust. Again, for example's sake, let's say it's pages 4 to 17. You can do that with multiple items. You can select a few, drag and drop. And when you drag and drop a bunch, notice it put them in alphabetical order. That's also standard for citations. It makes your job a lot easier. You do have to proofread it, make sure that it's accurate, fix any mistakes that you see, but it is kind of magical.
Hello.
Again, if you wanted to drag and drop an in-text citation, oh, apologies, if you can mute your mic. We're hearing some background noise. If everyone could make sure their mics are muted. If you hold down the Shift key, you can drag and drop, and we get an in-text citation. Now, that's the first method. There is another method that you can use. You can select as many sources as you wish from your center panel, right-click and select Create Bibliography from Items. This allows you to then copy to your clipboard and you can paste into your document. So to show you what this looks like, I can select a number of items, right-click, Create Bibliography from Items. It'll confirm which citation style I want here, and you can choose your output method. Usually copy to clipboard is the easiest. Hit OK. And now they've been added to my clipboard. I was able to paste them into my document. Now, perhaps the most magical version of creating your citations in Zotero is to use the plugin. So this plugin exists in Microsoft Word and in Google Docs, and it's something that is automatically added to Microsoft Word and Google Docs once you've installed Zotero on your device. You might need to restart your device for this to take effect, but you'll see in my Microsoft Word document here, I have a Zotero button up at the top of my screen. If I click on that, it gives me a few different options. Your first step will be to make sure you are logged in with your Zotero account. This is another feature where you have to have that free Zotero account in order to take advantage of it. So under, I believe it's under one of these 3, document preferences, refresher, unlinked citations, I believe it would be under document preferences. You'd be prompted to sign in with your account. So it will appear up at the top here. You'll be able to do that. I am automatically logged in, and let's say I'm writing something brilliant or an essay. I can type what I need, and then I can add a citation. So I might need an in-text citation here at the end of my sentence. I can hit Add Edit Citation. It'll confirm my style, and then I'll get a little pop-up window. It's appeared on my other screen, so give me just a moment and I'll move it over here. I get a little pop-up window. This allows me to search through my citations within my library to find the one that I want to cite. If I double click it, you'll see it now appears in this little preview formatted in APA style because that's the style I'm working in. You can explore in a couple of different ways. You can explore from this library panel, which is like a little mini version of your library to help you track down the item you want to cite. Or you can explore in a list, which will correspond with the open documents you have in your Zotero library right now. So the ones that I'm currently reading in this panel here, those are the ones that are appearing as listed in open documents. And again, you can search for any item if you know the name of the author, the title, what have you. You can also explore if you've had any notes. You can search them as well. But let's say I want to cite this resource here. I can hit this arrow button and it automatically puts that citation into my document. Now I can keep writing. I can add another citation. I personally like to explore my library instead of the list so that I can see all of the different resources that I actually have. Again, double click, it adds it up here. If you click on the item, you can even specify what page number you're citing in that particular in-text citation. So let's say this was a direct quote. I need to be including a page number. I can type that page number in here. I can click done, hit that arrow, and now I get my citation appearing for me here. But that's not all. When I finish my essay and it's time for me to write up my bibliography or my works cited list, I can then place my cursor where I want that works cited list to appear and click the button Add Edit Bibliography. Zotero combs through all of the citations that I created using that Add Edit Citation button and adds it automatically to my works cited list. So it automatically will correspond. It'll be one-to-one, the citations in my paper to the citations at the end in my works cited list. Now, let's say I had to go in and I had to write a little bit more and I had one more citation that I needed to put in. I could click Add Edit Citation. I can select an item. I get the citation in my paper and you'll see it automatically was added to my bibliography at the end of my paper. So it automatically will track all of the ones that you have added using these buttons. Now notice when I click on them, they're grayed out. If I decided I needed to edit this, it would break the link between these two. Let's say it was actually 1998. Maybe I didn't check my metadata and I had an error. You'll notice it did not automatically change the date down here to 1998. Any changes you make to in-text citations in the body of your paper, not using these automatic buttons, will not be reflected at the end of the paper. You will have to go and manually make those changes yourself. Now in Google Docs, it looks basically the same. You have a Zotero button up at the top of Google Docs. And when you click on that button, you will find I believe it's a drop-down menu where you can click Add Edit Citation and Add Edit Bibliography. So now, an opportunity for you. Let's take maybe a minute or so to test this out for ourselves. You can try dragging and dropping, or if you have everything kind of ready to go and installed, you can attempt to use the Zotero buttons within Microsoft Word. Just a little quick experiment to see what it looks like for us. And as we do that, I will check in on the chat here. The question is, if you share a library, can you see each other's annotations and notes? So this is a feature where, yes, you can see notes that are added to a library. It does depend on the permission settings that you have given to everyone to whether or not they're going to be able to add notes themselves. Annotations, I am less certain of, and I would encourage you to explore the Zotero forums around group libraries. And I did put a link in the chat for support for groups specifically. So that's where I believe you'll find the best information to follow up regarding that. Thank you for that question. All right, so hopefully everyone's had a chance to try dragging and dropping material into a Word document or a Google Doc. I have some memory aids in this slide deck as well, just to show you what this process looks like. So you click that Add Edit Citation button, you select from your library, and then you hit Add Edit Bibliography to get the full citation at the end of your paper. This is also your reminder to proofread and edit your citations to make sure they are accurate. If you proofread within your Zotero library first, that means there will be less material that you have to go back and fix in the document itself later. So another question here in the chat is it possible to use a DOI format instead of an HTTP format? Yes, you can adjust your citation styles and customize them as you please. So if we go back into our Zotero library, we would go to Edit and Settings. You'll see there are a bunch of different citation styles, and they all have different preferences for how they prefer links to be displayed. And if you click on Get Additional Styles, you can search almost 11,000 different citation styles. So if you're working in a certain style, or you're working to maybe get material into the proper formatting for, say, a journal article that has its own style, like maybe the journal has its own citation style, you can search for it here. You can either scroll, or because there are almost 11,000 of them, I would recommend searching by title. So when you adjust the format, you will then see things appear in different ways. So I just demonstrated APA style, but it will look different if you are using a different citation style, of course. Oh, a couple of tips. I do recommend creating that free online account. It allows you to sync your library. It allows you to access your library from the web, as I demonstrated, and it also allows you to create those group libraries. I would encourage you for sure to check out Zotero's Quick Start Guide and screencast tutorials. Like I said, Zotero is open source. Their forums are excellent resources. Those are always the first places that I turn when I have questions about Zotero. And additionally, Memorial Libraries has a detailed Zotero guide for more help. That's where the recording of this presentation will ultimately live. Right now, there is an older recording that is currently there, but there are also step-by-step processes for getting started with Zotero.